Hello everyone! So, sticking with the theme from yesterday's video about fishing line, I figured for Review Wednesday this week, for today, whatever, is I'm going to review Sunline DoStrike. It is a line specifically for chatterbaits. As you can see, this is my chatterbait rod here, and on it I have Sunline DoStrike. Now, this was developed by Brett Height and Sunline. For those of you that don't know, Brett Height is huge with the chatterbait. Alright, and yeah, it's sponsored by Sunline. So this is he developed this specifically for chatterbaits. And here's the thing about this. So it is a fluorocarbon line, but made with stretch in it. Not quite as much stretch as monofilament, and then that invisibility and sensitivity of a fluorocarbon. And so this just came out like last year, and I obviously had to buy some right away. I mean, it's something specifically for chatterbait fishing, and I love throwing that thing, so I was like, I gotta try it. Alright, and so I got it right away, and I love it. I haven't stopped using it on that rod, specifically for chatterbaits now. Now, in my video yesterday, I talked about for chatterbaits, spinnerbaits, square bills, and lipless crankbaits that I like to use a monofilament for those applications, for those lures, and especially the chatterbait and the spinnerbait. And that was because of the stretch. The reason behind all that is because of the stretch of monofilament. It gets you better hookups. I talked about all this in the last video, going over all the lines that I use for every different lure that I throw. But so that's what I was using monofilament for. So obviously I'm not wrong. The stretch is great for that chatterbait to set the hook, get better hook set. And this line doesn't quite stretch as much as the monofilament, but it still has a lot more stretch than fluorocarbon line. And with it being sensitive as fluoro and all that, it's actually really, really awesome. It's a cool concept, and it's actually in a low-vis green color instead of just a clear fluorocarbon. They actually, well, it's kind of like a camo color. It's like low-vis green, and like every once in a while in the line, it's like a little bit is bluish. Or bluish purple sort of color. But it's really just a low vis green color on there. So yeah, I started using this. I started throwing it in 16-pound test. It comes anywhere from I think 10 to 18. With monofilament, I was throwing 17-pound tests, so I just went with the 16 on the DoStrike, and am not going to change it now. And I specifically just throw chatterbaits with that. Well, not really. I have been throwing like lipless and things on that too. But specifically this was just for that chatterbait. But I found that the line is really good for throwing all the stuff that I was throwing on the monofilament for the exact same reason. So thing with it is pretty expensive. So I mean, I understand if people don't want to spend that much online. It's like $30 for a 300-yard spool. Like, it's pretty pricey, but I like it a lot, and I think it's even better than the monofilament. Just the subtle differences are just enough that it makes it better than the monofilament. But at the same time, I would go back to monofilament too if I don't buy some of this line and I need to re-spool, I'll go back to mono. I mean, that's not that big of a deal, but I think for what it is, I think it's worth it, and actually I like it a lot. And for guys that are struggling throwing a chatterbait, you know, I hear it a lot, as I can never catch anything on that thing, I hate that stupid bait, whatever, or I lose a lot of fish on it, I can't stand it. There's actually a lot of people that don't like that bait. That changing to this line on a good medium heavy rod will help you with that detecting bites better and also getting a better hook set. So if you're struggling with that bait, it is a phenomenal bait and it works year round pretty much, and a lot of times it catches really good fish. And you want to just get into it and you're having problems, look into that line. Seriously, I would say 16 pound is the way to go. I don't, like I said, I throw 17 on mono, and that's what I've kind of always thrown on that bait, other than testing other things, but I found that was the best. And this 16 pound is pretty much the same thing, but it actually is thinner than that monofilament, obviously, because it's a fluorocarbon than a mono. They're usually a lot thinner of a line, so that means more on the spool, whatever, which is always nice. But yeah, I figured I'd talk about it because I talked about lines, and I didn't mention it in yesterday's video about all the lines because I was like, well, technically monofilament's what I've always used for those baits, and also, like I said, it's a lot more inexpensive than this stuff, and this is kind of just a weird little one-off sort of line that they just started coming up with last year. But then I figured I would just do a full review on it and why actually instead of monofilament on that rod now I'm using that DoStrike. Started using it as soon as it came out last year, and I heard about it and have been using it ever since. I like it a lot. So it also seems to not want to get nicked up as much as fluorocarbon does sometimes, and seems a little bit smoother to cast sometimes. Because sometimes fluoro, I don't know, it's it can be a butthead sometimes. Some people don't get along with fluorocarbon very much. I actually know a lot of them that hate using fluorocarbon, even though they use it all the time, but they're always talking about how it wants to bunch up on the reel, or just it gets nicked really easily around certain cover, which is true, I believe it. But this just seems to be that perfect sort of medium. So I figured I'd talk about it, and that's it. Just a quick little review on that, and yeah, I'll see you guys on the next one.